in horses, but we will remember the name of the Lord our God. And that is why on this third day, we commit every part of this program into your hand, that you will direct every part by your wisdom in Jesus' name, that all that will be required to be done in this conference, Lord, you will show the path to follow in Jesus' name. And at the end, Lord, we will have every reason to give you the glory and praise in Jesus' name. For every presenter, speaker, participant in this program, Lord, let every word that has been spoken, Father, to lead for the advancement of Africa as a continent, Lord, shall be established by your good hand. In the mighty name of Jesus. Thank you, precious Lord. In Jesus' mighty name we have prayed. Amen and amen. Please, you may be seated.
Thank you very much. Now that we have started the program with God, we can go full throttle to move on to the wonderful things that we have to do today. This has not been a usual conference. It has been an unusual one because of the dimensions of leadership thoughts that we have brought on board and the levels to which we have explored. So to bring us a proper welcome for this morning, will you please put your hands together as I invite the chair of the conference of the local organizing committee. Please, let's put our hands together for Professor Heise Obanyo, please. Can you put your hands together? Thank you very much. You're welcome, ma.
Good morning, everyone. All rolled out protocols duly observed. I want to recognize one of our lead speakers who is around with us this morning, Professor Jonathan Aremu. All our panelists who are around, I say good morning. The chaplain, thank you so much for leading us in the opening prayer. Members of management, conference participants, I want to again welcome us all to the third and final day of C-ICADI 2018. It has been a most unusual conference, and I do believe that a lot has been rolled out. I want to particularly appreciate every conference participant, everyone that has made one contribution or the other. The different perspectives have actually gone a long way for us to have new thoughts, new directions on leadership. What's most unique about this conference is the fact that we, as Africans, are interrogating issues of leadership. And it's not just about new constructions of leadership. It's one thing to say that there is a challenge, but it's more important for us to begin to profess solutions. We have been able to address key issues, and I've been really excited to know that for the very first time on the ICADI platform, we've had voices from different parts of the continent, particularly Southern Africa. And the contributions have been most unique, and we do hope that future ICADIs will expand this further. This morning, we're expecting Her Excellency, Mrs. Joyce Banda, an Amazon of a leader, one who has charted a great path, one who has been a political leader, one who is also passionate to see transformation on the African continent. We'll be giving a lot of time this morning and most part of today, to ensuring that the scientific sessions are concluded. From the feedback we received yesterday, the few papers that we had were quite insightful and definitely going to move on the dialogue and the discourse. And so this morning, on behalf of the Conference Organizing Committee, I'd like to welcome every conference delegate and ask us to look forward indeed to a great time. C-ICADI conversations should not just end with this conference. We'll have a situation room And we would want discussions to go on. The social media is active, and so wherever you are, let us keep the conversations going, even until the next C-ICADI, which will be in the year 2020. And so for today, I welcome us all, and I ask us to kindly be mindful of the time slots. We had to put some of our presenters under pressure yesterday because some of us did not manage the time well. It's not in the volume of the things that we say, and it's actually important to begin to be succinct as we deliver. There's so much to be said in a very, very short time. And we can also see how, even when we are not called, to send our questions, our comments, our contributions in, either via mail, online platform, joining the conversations, as well as bringing up pieces of paper for the master of event to take on board. May I appreciate our delegates that have come from outside Covenant University and ask you all to have a wonderful time, and God bless you all. Thank you.
That's the chair of Conference Organizing Committee. Can you please put your hands together for Professor Haize Obayo? Ladies and gentlemen, yesterday we had quite a number of presentations, all of them loaded with meanings, with information to expand our horizon. And I'm sure that though we took notes and we engaged in conversation, you may have missed out one or two things that our rapporteurs have been able to put together. So right now, I'll be bringing up Professor Adekeye to please come and give us like a summary of what we did yesterday. Please, can you put your hands together for him as he comes up?
I'll prefer to use the lectern. Please permit me to stand here. I rely on all established protocols. The registrar said the report for yesterday, I'm giving the report for Tuesday, the day 1, and for yesterday, Wednesday, or Tuesday, the day 2. The opening day was well attended and full to capacity, and we give glory to God for this. There were addresses from the chair, COC, Vice Chancellor, the Chancellor, the conference chair, Mr. Cecilia Akintomidi, and a goodwill message from His Royal Highness, the Olota Afota. C-ICADI started, and we understand it's a strategic platform to interrogate leadership and to seek the pathway to future, or to the future of Africa. The COC chair, in her opening address, stated that C-ICADI is a strategic platform in the sense that it seeks to interrogate the advancements in the leadership question in Africa in order to strategize and come up with the appropriate leadership that will move Africa forward. For the Vice Chancellor, he welcomed all the conference delegates and remarked that the guest speakers are experts in their various fields. He then informed the audience that Covenant University, in the recent World Universities ranking, was ranked to be the top 3% of the world university according to the Times Higher Education Ranking Body. Then the Chancellor's remark. The Chancellor said a lot of things concerning the issue of leadership in Africa, and that the time has come when reasoning should be engaged. He therefore urged the participants to engage more in thinking than in mere presentations, both at the joint and parallel sessions during the conference. Remarks by the chair of the conference, Ms. Cecilia Akintomidi, presented her remarks based on the theme of the conference, and she began by stating that leadership determines the progress or otherwise of any nation. She cited the example of Ethiopia, where a 42-year-old president recorded transformations within a period of 6 months. She also cited the example of South Africa, where a president's scandalous leadership impacted negatively on the nation's economy. She therefore postulated that if the leadership problem of Africa is solved, almost every other thing will fall in place. Then we had a keynote address by Her Excellency, the former president of Malawi, Dr. Joyce Banda. And in her submission, she maintained that she had used most of her life, or part of her life, to better the situation of the African woman, both in her country and elsewhere. She stated that she once stumbled on a research discovery where it was reported that every individual was born with 30% of leadership traits, while the remaining 70% of leadership capacity has to be developed by the individual. She rolled out some statistics and discoveries that show that Africa has made some notable development in terms of human and infrastructural development. However, she noted 8 areas where African leaders still need to do a lot of job. And they run through modernization of agriculture, regeneration of resources to create employment, focus on education, intensification of regional economic integration, attraction of foreign investments, acceleration of technological development, political will to create stable environment, and expansion of private investment. She submitted that the current gender imbalance is unacceptable because even before colonization, African women had been known to occupy leadership positions in Africa. We quickly translated to the panel discussion session, and we had Dr. Bukola Oyewumi, Mr. John Oyewole, Mr. Femi Taiwo, Dr. Afolabi, and Dr. Adewale take the podium respectively. That was for the first day, Monday. Some of the key issues or the deliverables. We talked about alternatives to democracy, looking at the case of Botswana. There are questions: how do we integrate and benefit from international organizations such as the UN and the AU? How do we mitigate cross-border challenges? What is the role of education in engendering leadership? How do we strategize in eradicating poverty? And how do we enshrine discipline and leadership from the family setting? Of course, this is expected to permeate the society. There are 2 models surfaced on Monday. We have relational leadership and situational leadership. The wrap-up was done by the chair of the conference, who summarized all of the discussions of the day. Yesterday, Tuesday 23rd, being the second day, we had several presentations, starting from Mr. Valentine Obi, who spoke on technological advances and digital disruption, the 21st century integration possibilities for Africa. He noted that this digital disruption may lead to the loss of jobs, but it will also usher in new waves of jobs. It leads to optimism and opportunities, which will make us to learn and relearn skills, or new skills, to be able to fit into the new dispensation that will come from all of these disruptions. According to him, there's disruption all over the world, and Africa is having its own fair share. The disruption is supposed to guide the direction of leadership in Africa, and for us to remain relevant, we have to continue to improve by learning and relearning new skill sets. This was followed by the presentation by our own Professor Peter Okebukola, talking about future frontiers in education in actualizing Africa's development agenda. He remarked that we've always looked at the top when it comes to leadership training in Africa, whereas there's need to catch them young, even from the primary school. Leadership is always looked at from the top, and we fail to look at the bottom. And he prescribed the tripod of CU, Landmark University, and the ALDC coming together in what he called the CLA model. And it suggested that this should be replicated in other institutions in Nigeria. He went on to talk about the Agenda 2063, talking about the African Union Agenda on leadership deficits, poverty, unemployment, and conflicts. And amongst others, he mentioned the future frontiers in education for achieving the Vision 2063, which includes the role of the teacher, the role of the learner, the role of technology, and the role of knowledge. We had Ms. Lucia Ngwani, who spoke on leadership in Africa, mainstreaming gender and youth engagement. This presentation showed that Africa should take women and youth seriously because we talk about the future being in their hands, yet we do not engage them in our discourse. Africa is blessed both in natural and human resources, and it would be unfortunate if we do not do well as a continent. That's a submission. Then we talked about the texture of leadership in Africa, and Dr. Murakiyo did justice to this. He submitted that leaders are to create an enabling environment for people to excel because we are all social architects. And that the irony is that Africa has the youngest population in the world, yet led by very aged persons. He equally advocated the process of leadershiping and talks about the real assets not being minerals, but human being, people. This was quickly followed by the presentation by architect Festus Njoku, who looked at leadership in the capacity to translate vision to reality. So the best way to predict the future is to create the future, and work the future into reality. And it concluded by saying, when leadership fails, infrastructure also fails. We had Dr. Litchfield Shabalala from South Africa, who spoke on the Africa We Want, leadership agenda for civil society and peaceful coexistence. She took us through some historical journey to show us who we are as Africans, that we must learn to live in the African way, that Africa needs to develop the African narrative in every aspect of life, and that we need to develop new African political narrative that provides political direction that can benefit Africans. We had somebody from the Collaborative Online Education for Nurturing Engineering Students, and this was given by Dr. Rahim Rice. He simply advocated for online coursework production and evaluation as a solution to some of the identified leadership problems in Nigeria. Then Mr. Abiodun Fijabi spoke on blueprinting Africa's leadership future, generic templates. He equally took us through history and spoke on the pre-colonial era, which had a system that worked. Values stood the test of time, which translated to Nigerians, Africans having integrity and honesty in all they do. And a key question sufficed here: how do we recover our heritage? That's for all of us to ponder on, because nobody else will celebrate our Nigerianness and our Africanness. Dr. Adebisi Adewale spoke on African leadership trajectories. And he concluded that corruption is a threat to sustainable development, ethical values, and justice. That corruption destabilizes society and endangers the rule of law. He equally spoke on aid, getting aid from international engagement, and said aid is nothing but enslavement. Then we had the Chancellor come present his paper, Driving Africa's Future, Revolutionary Pathways Towards Redefinition of Leadership in Africa. And it started with a mantra that it doesn't have to be white to be right. That there should be multidisciplinary platform to think out the solution to African problems, though corruption blinds the eyes and the mind. He maintained that Christianity remains a force for advancement, and he cited the case of South Korea. And equally went on to say politicians are thinking about the next election, whereas statesmen think about the next generation. Key issues in some of this presentation. We understand that a leader without leadership skill is bound to fail. And great leaders think outside the box, and mad thinkers are potential leaders. African values abhor corruption in all of its ramifications, whereas imported political values have not merged well or synced well with our own values. By the time we concluded yesterday, we added 2 new models to leadership. Recall on Monday, we had a relational and institutional leadership. And by yesterday, we had to add the directional leadership and the intentional leadership. So we have 4 models of leadership emanating from this conference. Some other questions remain. Why are African leaders allowed to remain in power when they are not making progress? Or in another way, how do we surmount the challenge of leadership in Africa? Some of the resolutions from the 2-day presentations include: we have to learn to work with positive disruptions. There's need for cultural integration. We should take advantage of free trade. We need effective education for the future. The place of women in leadership, and how to design curricula to be up to date. These were insightful presentations, and we look forward to the presentation for today. Thank you for listening.
Thank you very much. Please, can we put our hands together again for Professor Adekeye? Thank you very much. That was a very detailed coverage of all that we have been doing since the beginning of this conference. Right now, it's time to have a panel discussion that will further integrate the concept of leadership into different aspects of life. And will be joining me on this platform. Please, let's put our hands together for Professor Jonathan Aremu. He's a professor of international economic relations and a consultant to ECOWAS, among several other organizations. Please come right, sir. You're welcome. Please, let's keep clapping. I have the pleasure of inviting Professor Emmanuel Adetiba. He's the director of Center for Systems and Information Services in Covenant University. He's a professor of Information and Communication Engineering. You're welcome, sir. Next, I will be inviting Dr. Angela Eni. Please, let's put our hands together for her. She's an associate professor of virology in Covenant University. Thank you very much. You're welcome. Next, I will be inviting Mr. Demilade Oluwashino. Right here. Mr. Demilade is from the Entrepreneurial Leadership Faculty. Please, right here, sir. That's Africa Leadership Center in Rwanda. Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for him again. Then I have Ms. Edidiong Okon. Please, let's invite her. Let's put our hands together to make her welcome. Thank you very much. She is the country project manager for Code for Nigeria. Please, you may be seated. And I would like to invite Mr. Austin Huzim. That's the founder of Africa Transporter Initiative. Let's please make him welcome. Thank you very much. If you may please have your seat. Ladies and gentlemen, we have been exploring different aspects of leadership. And I'm sure that by all means you understand that all of these people are leaders in their different areas. So they can bring different perspectives to the discourse on leadership. We will be taking about 3 minutes discussion from each person. And after that, we will take comments from the House. And then we'll have a wrap-up message from everyone. I would like to start with Professor Aremu. Now, Professor Aremu will be giving us an idea and speaking to the role of leadership in actualizing sustainable development goals, which is one of the priorities of the world right now, something we are driving vigorously. So we want to look at it in terms of securing Africa's economic. Over to you, sir.
Thank you. All proposals of that. And I appreciate the university for another opportunities offered to me this morning. On the topic assigned to me, that is sustainable development with respect to Africa. Let me start by saying that in 1963, Organization of African Union was put in place. And since that time, a lot has been put in place to ensure that the continental leaders forge ahead with the ambition of integrating the continent. And just as I said in my paper, to secure the future of the continent, they discovered that they have to put in place a lot of action. And the most concretized action that was put in place was that of the Abuja Treaty of African Economic Community Treaty of 1991. Before then, we have the Lagos Plan of Action. But not until recently, particularly this year, that the implementation of that particular action started with the commencement of African Continental Free Trade Area. Apart from setting up the organization in 1963, the biggest event ever recorded in the continent was that one that happened in Kigali, 21st of March this year, the commencement of the economic future of Africa by ensuring that we have a free trade area. Again, a free trade area is the first step in economic integration for those that are familiar with that aspect of economic, that aspect of trade. Hitherto, we already have a lot of regional economic communities, about 8 of them which I mentioned. But the plan of Africa is to ensure that all these regional economic communities that have not been charging themselves import duty when goods are moving across, that they have the same thing at the continental level, so as to expand the economic space of every producer, every investor within the African community. Why? Because the global environment is no longer sustainable. I was privileged to be in a WTO ministerial conference meeting, the 11th one that was held in Argentina last year. And a guy sitting very close to me at one of the breakout sessions came from America, and he said, everything you are discussing here, America will not agree. That's what he said. And you can see what is happening today. So the global multilateral level with respect to trade and investment is becoming unpredictable. And therefore, since our founding father has an ambition to secure the economic future of Africa, we need to go back quickly and make sure that before we are balkanized again, that we should have a better trade among ourselves. Currently, only 3% of global trade is what Africa can enter over the entire world. Among ourselves, less than 20% is what we are trading among ourselves. In fact, Article 24 of GATT says that before you can form an economic integration, you must have what we call substantial trade, which means substantiality starts from 51%. But right now we are having only 12, which means it's not a viable economic integration. How do we make it viable? The only option is to actually collapse every barriers among ourselves and forge ahead towards economic integration. This first stage of the first phase, please, the stage and the phase are different. Phases of economic integration are 4. 1, free trade area, custom union, common market, economic union. But under the first phase, which is the free trade area, we have African Continental Free Trade Area with 3 protocols. The rest of the other 3 protocols are coming as from February next year. We have not signed into the first one. But luckily enough, as we were discussing here 2 days ago, the president inaugurated the committee that we are going to work quickly on it. I'm privileged to work on the fiscal and monetary policy as a technical working group on that subject. Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, some of the issues that we can see that came up from Prof's presentation is that imagine an organization set up in 1963, and we're talking about taking actual steps to make things work just last year. Now, imagine policies being put together in a case where Africa is actually disadvantaged. And when you actually are able to put together policies that can work in your favor, you're dealing with external forces. that are defending their private interest and wants to frustrate your efforts. So we're talking about a case where Africa is in a very, very critical situation, and we actually need to synergize to be able to move forward. Thank you very much. Please, can we put our hands together again for Prof? I want to look at another critical aspect of development in Africa, and this has to do with food. We know that it's necessary for there to be development in every area, but we also know that survival is critical. So to talk about food security and agriculture, biotechnology, nutrition, and food storage and preservation, please put your hands together as I invite Dr. Eni.
Good morning, everyone. I deeply appreciate the organizing committee for this opportunity to contribute. With regards to agriculture and food security for the continent, this is a critical, area for us because our continent continues to multiply as far as population goes, and these people need to be fed. We keep talking about food insecurity. What needs to happen? The subtopic, it says I need to emphasize on biotechnology, nutrition, preservation and storage. That is a lot. But first of all, what needs to happen, the policies that we have currently in place are not very functional. We require policies that would strive towards empowering our farmers rather than making them to be dependent. This is what we have right now. And then secondly, we must innovate. And the kinds of innovations we're talking about here include policy innovations, infrastructural innovations, all kinds of innovations. Take biotechnology, for example, and almost always Africans seem to be the last to catch on and benefit from any technological development. Unfortunately, we are the same ones that, because we're plagued by an array of problems, we require these technologies. Other continents have moved ahead as far as biotechnology is concerned. We are benefiting from the trickles. Why? First of all, our institutions are not empowered. We do not have the human capacity, the infrastructural capacity within the continent to help ourselves to work with these tools that are available, that are evolving, to solve our food problems. And so we depend on other people. Now the problem with that is we get food, improved varieties, improved in quotes, improved crops, improved livestock, and all of that. Now, for crops, this is critical. Food is not just food to the African man. Our food requires to function for us the way we want it. Improved varieties from where it is coming from. I'm not thinking about, for example, the fact that you need a certain type of cassava, maybe, for fufu or for apple. They want to improve yield, improve disease resistance, improve whatever else, and bring it home. Now, these interventions that are already functional are not adopted by our farmers. Therefore, we require policies that empowers our people and provides the adequate infrastructure. In universities, there needs to be funding, research needs to be happening by our people, for our people, because we understand, because we're indigenous, the kinds of needs that we have as a people. As far as preservation and storage go, we have massive infrastructural deficit. Our roads are horrible. Before foods go from farm to market, the losses, post-harvest losses, are up to 50%. In fact, they are more serious than the diseases on farm. So that needs to be addressed. Storage facilities are not in place. There needs to be trucks. So beyond the government putting up policies, it's also very critical at this point to have private public partnerships that can contribute towards enhancing agricultural development in Africa. Key drivers: innovation in policies, innovation in infrastructure, all sorts of innovation in financing even. The Land Use Acts, the farmers, most of African farmers are still subsistence. And most of our subsistence farmers have maximum 1 hectare, for example. We talk about mechanization. We're going about a whole lot of things the wrong way, and this needs to change. Not just with the leaders need to put the right policies in place, and there's a lot of supporting that is also required, both from the public, from the private sector, and all of that. It's massive.
Thank you very much. Now here we see another dimension to it. In a case where, under normal circumstances, population growth should be an asset to any country, but that depends on how you maximize it. But in Africa, we find out that the more the population is growing, the more endangered we become. Because if we cannot feed these people, of course, they get desperate, and they take very desperate measures. We can see some very critical issues as far as leadership is concerned. Talking about policies, why should there be policies that actually disadvantage the people you are supposed to empower? So you have policies that actually make farmers dependent instead of independent and innovative. And we're talking about structures not put in place. Now, can we say that the leadership of the nations in Africa don't know that there's need for storage? They actually don't know that there should be transportation and good roads and all of that. I think the main problem comes back to the same issue of leadership that we have been talking about. Our leaders knowing what they should do, but actually not doing it. Now, taking the conversation further, we will be looking at the aspect of science, technology, and engineering, and mathematics. We will be focusing on artificial intelligence. Of course, the last speaker talks about a lot of technology available that has not been adopted in Africa. And incidentally, we have a lot of Africans driving this technology in Western countries and some other developed countries. But one way or the other, they have not been able to do the same miracle here in Africa. So I'll be inviting Professor Adetiba to please speak to this topic. I think there's a mic, please.
Thank you very much, moderator. And I want to especially appreciate the organizing committee for this privilege and permit me to stand on the existing protocol. Of course, STEM is science, technology, engineering, and mathematics. And there are different dimensions to STEM. We have the digital literacy aspect. We have the artificial intelligence. And artificial intelligence is a subset of ICT. And of course, in the course of this conference, a lot of persons have highlighted the different challenges that we have in Africa, ranging from health. Recent statistics shows that malaria, we have the highest incidence of malaria in West Africa. Like as of 2017, the death rate that has to do with malaria was 91% from West Africa region. And there are so many other challenges. We have cancer, prostate cancer, we have breast cancer, and different very aggressive cancers that are incident in Africa. We have the challenge of education, learning by rote, and so many other challenges. And one of the major challenges that was highlighted by the chairperson of this conference was the challenge of poverty. In fact, she mentioned it clearly that India at a point in time was the poverty capital of the world. But from India, it shifted to Nigeria as being the current poverty capital of the world. But there's one thing that Indians did. They were able to use ICT to move from being the poverty capital of the world to being the 6th largest economy in the world currently. So I believe that with ICT and with artificial intelligence, we as Africans, we can also move from being poverty capital of the world to being one of the largest economies in the world. And what is artificial intelligence? Artificial intelligence is the science and engineering of building intelligence systems. That is, building systems that can operate the way human beings operate. We have human beings having the ability to learn. And of course, artificial intelligence allows machines to have the ability to also learn. And all these concepts can be applied to solve some of these major problems that we have in Africa, especially the area of health, the area of agriculture, and even education. So I believe that if India was able to achieve that, we in Africa can also achieve that. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, sir. Now, one of the critical things that have been mentioned here is the use of technology to solve our problems. Now, it's not that we are not aware of the problems, which I actually think solves majority of what we need to worry about. If we don't know we have a problem, that's a different thing. We have lived with a problem for so long, then perhaps we're not thinking, or we don't have the will to solve them. So we are told now that we can actually leapfrog into the future, but by engaging artificial intelligence to solve some of the critical problems we have. Thank you very much. Please, can we put our hands together again for Professor Adetiba? We know that another critical issue we have in Africa is to engage the youth. The government cannot sustain the number of youth, those graduating from universities or any other institution, or those who are not even passing through these institutions at all. So how can they be engaged gainfully, and how can they actually make a good thing out of their lives? Now we want to look at it in the area of entrepreneurship, this perspective looking at the youth development, and I'd like to invite Mr. Demilade Oluwashino, please.
All right, thank you.
Please, let's put our hands together for him.
All right, good morning again, everyone, and thank you so much for this opportunity to contribute my thoughts to the conversation. I think Professor Aremu spoke to a lot of the macro issues with regards to the economy of Africa. One thing that we clearly realize is that we need to be economically prosperous as a continent in order to make progress, because the Bible says the borrower will always be the servant to the lender, right? And he has spoken about some of those macro issues. I want to sort of zone in into what are the immediate steps that we can begin to take, right? And entrepreneurship is a key area in thinking about youth development, right? The other speaker spoke a few minutes about how much we need innovation. But many of the leaders that we have, do they understand what innovation means? And are they able to sort of practice that? And the reason we're speaking about youth development is because these qualities that we desire in our leaders, we want to see them in the next generation. We want to see people who are able to do that. And so that's why we talk about youth development. But I want to bring a perspective to entrepreneurship today, which is entrepreneurial thinking, right? Because not everybody will start a business, but everybody can think entrepreneurially. If I take a poll across this room and ask people, how many of you want to start a business? Because we say entrepreneurship, we think about it in terms of starting businesses. And that's why we have people start business and they fail, right? But entrepreneurial thinking is different. It's an approach, it's a proactive approach to problem solving. It's creating value, right? You might argue whether this place where we are today, the Living Faith Church and the Faith Tabernacle, is a business or not. You might be able to debate that, but you can't debate the fact that there is entrepreneurial thought in that. And that is the ability to see problems and see them as opportunities, right? So as we're thinking of empowering and developing the next generation of leaders and young people, we need to train people to be entrepreneurially minded, because these are people that can get into organizations. They might not need to start their own businesses, but they can solve the problems. They can create the jobs that other people need. Let me give you an example of something that we do at the African Leadership University, and this is something practical we do in one of our courses, right, in entrepreneurship course. We give each student about 1,200, so to speak, 4,000 Rwandan francs. That's about 1,200 naira, and say, what problem can you solve with this? Come back to us in 4 weeks and tell us what you've solved. Out of that, people have started ventures. People have started ideas. They've started dealing with some of the immediate problems in their environment. And we need more of that replicated as we think about empowering young people to create value for the future. I know in Covenant University, for example, there's the Ebron Startup Lab, and that's great, right? But we need to scale that more. We need to give more young people exposure to what it means to create value and to solve problems, right? One of the things I wanted to quickly pick up in terms of solving problems is that and this is also related to education. At the African Leadership University, there's something we do. In a traditional university, you declare a major, right? And this is the course I want to study. But for us, we talk about a mission. What is the problem you want to solve with your life? What is the value that you want to contribute? So as we think about entrepreneurship, we must start with giving people an entrepreneurial mindset, and then they can take that further and can continue to create more value. And this will help us create the jobs we need for young people, create the opportunities that we need to engage even more young people across Africa. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Can we please put our hands together for him? So, a lot of people, from what he said, usually would believe that to be an entrepreneur, I have to start a business. But here it's telling us that you must have a problem-solving mentality. Incidentally, it's easy for people to, particularly Africans, to identify problems. They can sit and point out several things that are wrong. But the challenge to actually step up, to do something about it, that is what makes you entrepreneurial. It doesn't take rocket science to know that there's something wrong. But where the creativity comes in, the innovation, is how to solve the problem in a very, very effective way, and to be sure that you are involved in adding value. Thank you very much. Please, can we put our hands together for him again? Now I want to move on to look at how we can actually engage modern electronic systems to revolutionize governance and democracy. And to speak to this, I'd like to invite Ms. Edidiong Okon. Please, let's put our hands together for her.
Good morning, everyone. Thank you for the opportunity. I'm speaking on how we can revolutionize governance and democracy with modern electronic technologies. I want to take it from this angle. How many people are familiar with cloud computing here? Who knows what cloud computing is? Who has, say, Google Drive here or an iCloud account? So that is cloud computing, and that is something that the government, I believe, should adopt for them to be able to gather data and information about their citizens. And why I say this, I've worked with Microsoft, and in working with Microsoft, there's a technology they have, their cloud computing is called Azure. And I've seen that the government MDAs that have adopted using cloud computing or using, say, Amazon Web Services are some of the institutions that have achieved the highest rates of success here. A big example will be FIRS. FIRS uses cloud computing for storage of all the data concerning tax, concerning information about citizens. So it's not a struggle for them to bring up data and for them to manage their tax systems. And it's clear that a partnership between private organizations and the government is what can push towards this technological advancement. So I see that the government has to look at providing their services from an aspect of computing because of the way the world is evolving and the fact that their citizens now have more access to the internet. It will be beneficial for them to provide their services with more ease. And the other thing I would make mention of is democratization of information. What I mean by that is information that is for the people being made readily available to the people. And that perspective is that any information that you as a citizen needs concerning governance or whatever it is that the government is to provide for you should be readily available to you. Data concerning what the government is doing should be open and accessible to its citizens because that's the only way we can actually push for accountability and transparency in governance.
Thank you very much. Now, some of the very critical things raised in this particular contribution is the adoption of cloud computing. I remember that the Chancellor mentioned yesterday that in Nigeria we perhaps don't even know how many people we have here because of the loss of data. If we remember, some of us who are registered for voting, and we know that it was done some time ago, and then for some people it was told that the data has been lost, so you have to do it again. The question is what happened to all the data that was captured? We don't have the facility to actually retain data. So if we decide to adopt cloud computing, we find that it's possible to actually move on to the level of big data, gather data that can actually be used. How can government make effective and sustainable decisions about the populace when they don't even know the number of people they are dealing with? And we're talking about information of the government also being available to citizens so that they can make informed choices. So this is a very critical aspect that we have to look at also, depending on the style of leadership. Thank you very much. Please let's put our hands together. Now I'll be moving on to talking about youth and how they are neglected, and one way or the other, they want to check out. And to talk about this, I want to invite Mr. Austin Huzim. Please let's put our hands together for him.
Thank you very much. Good morning, fellow panelists. It's been a pleasure to be here again, and I want to thank the organizing committee, Professor Mrs. Obayan, and the rest of the people who have made this a possibility. First of all, on behalf of the youth of Africa, I want to say a very big congratulations for your courage. It's not easy being an African as a youth. And I want to apologize on behalf of the ills that have been meted to us by the so-called leaders we have in this country. When you see a situation that is dire, the next thing you think about doing is how to escape. What do you see when danger is coming? What is the attitude of a normal human being when danger is coming? The next thing you think about is, how do I escape? How do I run away? How do I save myself? How do I find a safe haven? When we watch the news, we hear very touching stories from Yemen, from Indonesia, from Philippines. We see a lot of things going on which you can all summarize as a crime against humanity. You feel the danger coming close to you and you ask yourself, what can I do at this moment to escape from this danger? So one of the reasons why our youth no longer find it safe here is the fear of frustration. They have been frustrated. I mean, it's practically impossible for a youth to start anything successful in a country called Nigeria without bottlenecks. I mean, we've seen arbitrage opportunities here and there. You want to see a permanent secretary, they will ask you to write a note, that's protocol. You write the note, they will ask you to sit down. You will sit down for 5 hours. The man comes out and they will tell you, sorry, you can't see him again today because he's going for another meeting. You don't matter to them. We don't matter to these people. So we have been frustrated and we have to think deeply about that. And then again, there is what we call bad and evil news. Shabalala said yesterday how much she hated CNN. Well, I love CNN. I watch CNN. It's my favorite transmission, international network. But we as youth, we have to be sure what we are consuming as news. Because when you watch television, when you go on YouTube, when you see the videos people have shared on your WhatsApp, on your timelines, and it is showing you a very uncompromising situation of an average African, the next thing you tell yourself, man, make I find my way. All right? So there is a mentality that we are not safe here. I mean, we are in a time when countries like China is talking about launching artificial moon that will give light to every people in the whole of China. But here in Africa, there is no kerosene to even light our stove. What do you think would be my attitude watching CNN telling me China is about to launch artificial moon? We don't even have panel, solar panel. So what do? I will start thinking, how do I go to China? So it is in the thinking of the youth as a result of the frustrations they have seen around them that propels their movement to live, to escape. We have to address this from the grassroots. And then the youth of Africa, I have some good news for you. You see, he who is down fears no fall. It is time we all become entrepreneurs. Because in every situation that is dire, there are opportunities. And who told you that opportunity comes but once? Who told you that? I am privileged to be here today, not because I passed through this institution, not because I am privy to any of these high-profile individuals here, but it is because I have believed that the first call to service in this life is mission to serve others. So first of all, we have to rethink our attitude. We have to rethink how we see things, our perspective on how we see things. Who is your role model? Who are you learning from? That is a very big challenge.
Thank you very much, sir.
So please, we are going to be looking at a lot of critical things, why these people move, and it boils down to negligence.
Thank you very much. Please, let's put our hands together for Mr. Huzim. It's very, very important for us to understand that when you have a continent where the largest percentage are youth, it's only reasonable that the government accommodates them and plan for their future. If that is not effectively done, then the youth either mobilize against the government or they find their way. And if they do, we're talking about the future of the nation exiting with all their talents, with their skills, with their innovations, with their great ideas, which should not be allowed to happen. It is absolutely unacceptable. Please, can you put your hands together for all our panelists? Ladies and gentlemen, I would like to acknowledge in the house today Our Excellency, the President of Malawi. Please, let's put our hands together. Professor Benda, thank you very much. Right now, we'll take a few comments from the house. Please, we'll make the comments straight to the point and very, very sharp. 30 seconds, and then we are out, because we'll want to take a few. Our panelists will respond, and we can move on to the next program. Thank you very much. Let's take 3 to start with. I have 1 there, 2, okay, 3, for us to have a spread. Thank you very much. Okay, 4. We'll wrap it up, and that will be all. Please, let's make it very, very fast.
Thank you very much. Responding to food.
Well, I appreciate if you also introduce yourself, sir.
Okay, I'm Shola Owolabi, Landmark University.
Okay.
Responding to how to make food accessible to the Nigerian populace, you were talking about innovations being adopted by our people, and that the adoption is not easy. We have to look at the gaps that we have left in the deployment of innovations, and that is extension workers, that is agricultural extension agents that relate with the farmers. How are they empowered? Then also our local institutions, the radio stations. Everybody wants to be on CNN, and this cannot be. So it is the local stations that will disseminate this information to people. Our public libraries, all these places have been neglected. No matter what we do, the innovations will not be adopted by our farmers if these critical aspects are not put into consideration. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much. Thank you very much. That's a great... Please, you can just take the gentleman sitting next. Yes, please, sir. So that we can just move to the other side. Yes, sir.
Good morning. All protocols duly observed. Just to add my voice to what the speakers have said, I think there are 2 major things that need to be sorted out if we must achieve sort out the challenges of the leadership and also bring about economic development. 1, political stability. If the political system of a country or Africa generally is not stabilized, all our policies, all our intentions, whatever we plan to do, even as youths, it will come to nothing. So the political situation of Africa needs to be critically looked at. Taking Nigeria as a case study, we know what is happening in the parliament, from the padding of budget, the missing of budget. So times that should have been used to concentrate and focus on things that will move the nation forward is being slided backwards. So the political situation needs to be checked critically for Africa and all neighboring. Why is it that an election will be taken and people cannot just accept defeat, but rather go to court and start dragging the issues? These are critical things that we need to look at. And then we talk of insecurity. If all policies are in place, we have all this good intention, and there is no security, then we are not yet ready to move forward.
Thank you very much, sir.
Sorry, one more thing before I drop the mic. Why do I say security? Now, Nigeria, we are not facing war at the moment, but we cannot say there is positive peace in Nigeria. Why? Because there is violence. And until when this violence is taken off, that is when we can now be talking of security and we can be talking of peace.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Yes, please, we have a comment.
Thank you so much. I want to intervene looking at the comment made by our own Professor Aremu. I'm a bit worried, sir. You know, I could see your passion in signing this agreement that, according to you, would define the future of Africa. But one thing that is so glaring is that most of the people behind some of these agreements, they already prepare their people at home. So my question before elaboration is, what kind of advocacy have you put in place, or those of you who want us to sign this agreement, what do you have on ground to make sure that we benefit from this future that we are talking about? I ask this question, sir, because of the comment made by our president. I think I seem to agree with him. He said that he will not be in a hurry to sign an agreement that will not impact on our people positively. And if you consider the asymmetry in the previous trade agreements, like the Green Tree, even the issue you raised about GATT, you know, the arrangement started in 1944. But because of the protests from less developed nations, we came up to GATT in 1947, and since then, we have not had it right. And so if Nigeria is refusing to sign, yes, on the surface, but the question is, those of you who are vast in this area, how do you ensure that those in that area, those that will benefit, our people will maximally benefit from this integration, this agreement that we are talking about?
Thank you very much, sir. And the final one.
Thank you. All protocols observed. I'm Dr. Agoha from Department of Psychology, and I'm an economic development consultant. I have followed the discussion keenly, and some questions went through my mind. One, at independence, the leaders were in their youth. What happened? Now we are clamoring for youth. Gowon was youth. Bafemi Awolowo, they were all youth. And those youths became old men. Now we are clamoring about youth. Youth is not our problem. West Africa had food security, and then we even exported food from Nigeria to other places. Today, we don't have food. So food is not our problem. Emma Wali is a Nigerian. He contributed immensely to the development of internet and all Nigerians abroad. Why is Nigeria not receptive to technological development? So our problem is not intelligence, is not technology. Politics in other continents has worked over the years without cloud computing. Why do we need cloud computing to get anything right in our politics? Why is it difficult or impossible for the Nigerians to hold their leaders accountable? Why is it that we cannot galvanize? And that is where our problem lies. We don't have issues with policy. All the policies signed, sir, they didn't work. NEPAD failed woefully. AU has not worked. ECOWAS, none of them has any economic relevance. If we sign this one, you are talking about in 50 years, people will be going for meeting. What is missing in Africa is that we've lost our humanity. We have lost our psychology. Unfortunately, whenever issues of development are articulated, we don't bring humanity, we don't talk about the roots of Africa, we don't bring historians. For all the years we've had this C-ICADI, everything is economists, but the economists will tell you ceteris paribus. Why are things not equal? They are deeply rooted in the missing humanity and psychology of Africa. So we need to go back to the root of Africa. So long as we continue cutting the flower and leaving the root of the tree, we will make no progress.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you very much. Thank you very much. First, I'd like to request that the owner of this car, I think it's a Camry, with a plate number GGE 448DP, should please move the vehicle. You're blocking traffic. Thank you very much. We've had very interesting discussions, and then we have had very interesting contributions. So what's going to happen is that in just about 30 seconds, please, all panelists will respond. I'll start from editing all the way round. And please, as you wrap up your comments, you also respond to any of the comments that is addressed to you. Thank you.
Okay, so I want to answer the question on why we need cloud computing. First and foremost, cloud computing, you said all this while we haven't needed it. It's like, it's similar to saying with the way the world is evolving, there are certain needs that have arisen, and there are simpler solutions to getting the work done. It's a more efficient way of doing business because it also requires much less power. And Nigeria, we know, has an issue with power generation. It requires less power, and it's also cost-saving. With the amount of data that the government works with, clearly, they've not been able to manage it effectively and efficiently. And that's what cloud computing helps to address. I would say this, a good example of a government that runs solely on cloud computing is the British government. They use Microsoft's cloud computing to run all their services. And we can all agree that that is a very functional government that is able to provide services, even down to the simplest of social services to its citizens. And then generally, I want to comment as a youth and just a general comment to everyone that one of the things I would like to say in moving forward, what he said, I completely agree with him that Africans have lost our humanity. In modern times, there's been a lot of talk of self-love. And now everybody is focused on self-preservation and always thinking about self. But I would rather say that do not be selfish with your privilege. The knowledge that you have received, the skills that you have gotten, they are transferable. So the opportunities, think of your sphere of influence and how you can transfer the skills that you have gotten and the knowledge that you have gotten to the people around you, the people that don't have the access that you have, even the people that say work in your homes, the domestic staff. You can do things to empower these people and to employ them and to even educate them beyond where they have gotten to. And I would say with entrepreneurship it's a good solution and it's a ready solution for young people and Africa generally. But we also need to understand that it's a bit of a calling. It requires a certain level of passion and drive. And if you don't have that, not everybody can run a business. Not everybody can be an entrepreneur. But you can be an intrapreneur, and that is you applying yourself in whatever employment that you are in and giving your best foot forward, taking ownership of whatever position you find yourself in per time. I think that's how we can move forward without just focusing on self and selfish privilege. And
Thank you.
The last thing I would want to say is that also, don't limit yourself. You can be a master of one thing, and that one thing will create so much revenue or or opportunity for you to be able to expand into other things and invest in other people's ideas. So be open to investing in ideas as well. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Professor Adetiba.
Yeah, thank you very much to all the contributions. In respect of STEM, I want to submit that fundamentally to have a person that are skillful in STEM areas, mathematics is highly fundamental, and of course programming is highly fundamental. That is, if you want to really build a critical mass in artificial intelligence. But statistics shows that less than 25% of graduates in Africa are actually in this field. That's in the field of STEM, that's science, technology, engineering. And of course, there's no how we can actually get to move our economy forward without increasing the number of persons that are actually enrolled for this program. And in order for us to actually move forward, there are so many things that we can put in place, which other economies have put in place. Like, we all know that US has the largest economy in the world, and why? It's on record that 85% of their workforce, they are in the area of STEM. So how can we shift the dynamics in Africa? There are things that are being done in the US, there are things that are being done in China, there are things that are being done in India, and I just want to highlight some of these things, and I believe that we can actually take a cue from there to move our STEM education forward. One fundamental thing that is done is in the area of tech hub. Tech hubs are created so that young persons are encouraged to get involved in mathematics, to get involved in programming. So we can take a cue from that and create tech hubs within the African space. Thank God for, of course, the Hebron startup is one of those examples. We have quite a number of good things going on there. We also have Andela right here in Lagos, where persons are groomed to be programmers. These are things that we should keep on encouraging. And apart from that, we can create boot camps where young persons can be encouraged, persons that have gone, there was a time that Zuckerberg came to Nigeria to interact with persons that are interested in programming. So those are things that we can actually put in place. And I'm very optimistic that if some of these things are put in place, Africa can produce the next Zuckerberg, that's Mark Zuckerberg, the creator of Facebook. Africa can produce the next Bill Gates, that is the Microsoft founder. And of course, we can have economic boom in Africa.
Thank you.
Thank you
very much. Please, let's put our hands together for him. Yes, sir. Thank you, sir. Professor Musa.
Yeah, once again, thank you. Let me just react to the first question, that my passion is not because I desire that certain agreements have to be signed. My passion is for the truth, for the right way to go, to expand the economic space, even for our youth. Africa has over 30% of the global resources that are untapped. Therefore, there is no need for Africa to be poor. But let me say, if these resources just remain potential, nobody will benefit from it. Until the potential come out and are being utilized, they will remain there as just potential. See, somebody said that the burial ground is the richest place in the world, where you have a lot of people who will have become professors, but they did not go to school at all. Potentially created to be very big, important personality in life, but no opportunity. So the free trade area is to give opportunity for Africans. The global environment is no longer clear. All our trade theory have not been working well. Everyone is going back to where it's coming from. And since our forefathers had the intention of we working together, that is why. On the issue of has advocacy been put in place, the answer is totally no. When this process started, we told the Nigerian Office of Trade Negotiation to put in place sensitization. On the 4th of July last year, all the heads of state in their 29th session at African Union meeting agreed that when head of state go back home, sensitize your people. A month later, the trade office was put in place, but no sensitization was done throughout. The first sensitization of Continental Free Trade Area was done inside Covenant University in March this year, just before it was signed. All the other ones that were carried out by government was done in May. The second one was the one which we actually organized, the Nigerian Institute of Advanced Legal Studies, because I have been their consultant for many years, that they organized as well. So what we are saying is that it's not a passion, but the right way to go. Now, if you shut the entire door of Nigeria from accessing Africa, have you achieved anything? Our Afrocentric foreign policy, since Tafawa Balewa, is gone. Every other thing, input, we fought in the Congo War, we fought in Liberia, we fought in this, they are gone. All these people are already members of what you say you will not sign. In West Africa, we remain the only one not signing. South Africa that did not initiate the signing, they are going to sign quickly in May, and they are ratifying soon. So what is the benefit of not going? So what we are saying, it is to be able to secure the future, and the president of the country actually confessed by saying that, well, it's a very big document, 400 and something pages. Some of you must have had the document with you when I gave you to the class. But he says, oh, I'm a soldier, I don't know all this. And next week, if Dangote is talking of ratification, not even signing, that is a higher level. Because he knows that his own economic opportunity is going to be at stake. Why? Because any of his business has no reason to be in all those countries. Because the right of establishment, if Nigeria did not sign it, then you don't have the right to be in any country. That is the issue. And if we have to go by accession to enter the ACFTA, my friend, every country will impose conditions on you. It's just a club. And when you are joining a club that has been established by people, people will say, no, I don't want you. So that is what we are trying to say. And then lastly, to say that what about various protocols which has not been obeyed, like ECOWAS trade liberalization scheme? Yes, let me confess and say this one. Among the economic community in communities in Africa, ECOWAS is well advanced. You go to all the 50 member countries, you don't need a visa. Initially, it was you can stay there in 90 days. Right now, you can stay there more than 2 years. Nobody will bother you anything. So what Ghana is doing is extremely wrong by sending Nigerians home, by closing their shop. When they started that kind of law, I called the Secretary of Ghana Investment Promotion Center. I said, what are you saying? He said, we told them that this thing will not work. I said, caution them before they ratify the law. But the National Assembly of Ghana went ahead. You don't have that right. And I was telling them 2 weeks ago in Ghana, the only way you can succeed, number one, is to table it at a World Commission that one, what you have signed under the right of movement as well as right of establishment, first of all, we don't want it again, and all the ECOWAS members say we agree before you can implement. So it's wrong.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, sir. Please let's put our hands together for Prof. Yes, ma'am.
I want to say that I totally agree with Agoa on the fact that we need to find ways to hold our leadership accountable. And then I totally disagree with you with regards to food not being an issue. Make no mistake, the fact that food is exported from West Africa does not change the fact that millions of Africans go to bed hungry every day. I know this because I work at the very grassroots. In the villages, I know what is going on. Even in town, how many of your relatives call you for money? They're not just calling you because they want to call you. So there's that problem. And we import so much more. Africa does not, Nigeria, for example, we don't produce as much carbohydrate even as we need. Most Nigerians consume less protein that is recommended by WHO. What we're saying, when we say food security, is not just about the quantity of food you eat. What needs to happen? Our government at all quarters need to fund researches that would provide improved varieties of food, livestock, fishes. And when we say improved based on the qualities and standards that are indigenously important and relevant to us as Africans. That is important. Those funding needs to happen. Infrastructure for such researches need to happen. Research institutions must be funded. He talked about extension officers and adoption of interventions that come up. This is critical. You go out, because I work with farmers, I go to the the ADP offices, and they're closed down, or they're sitting there, they can't go out to work. So policies are critical. I agree, we need to hold our leaders accountable, but in the meantime, we're trying to find solutions that is going to take us forward. And I'm saying policies need to change, I insist on that. And I'm saying there is need in the meantime for private partnership to complement what is missing. There is need to take seriously the issue of food security and address it. Thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am. Please, yes.
All right. Thank you. I'm just going to say one of my biggest frustrations, and I heard with a personal example. I think my biggest concern will be that many of the young people that live here today would not have a clear plan of action or something that they are going to do. Make no mistakes, the future is about you, right? I don't want to be sitting in the same seat in the next 10 years having this conversation with the same kinds of problems. One of the things, one of the things we as young people, or our generation and the future generation, is a responsibility to act. I know that there are big issues that we are speaking about, but one thing that we must not allow, what the psychologists call learned helplessness, where we talk about things over and over again and we cannot do anything about them. We don't take the agency to act. It's dangerous for our future. I spoke about entrepreneurial thinking earlier. That's where we need to position ourselves. So as you walk out of this conference, what part are you going to add to the progress and the future of Africa? What are you going to do? We acknowledge there's a lot of problems and difficulties, but we've listened to stories, and the former president of Malawi is here, and how she has evolved through very difficult circumstances. So let's keep those excuses behind us, young people, and let's take this future. Let's begin to do things, right? I said I would speak about a personal example just briefly on entrepreneurship. My wife is here, and we moved to Kigali this year and started working in education. But I remember one of the things we thought about is how can we create value and create opportunities? And then we were able to start something with as little as $200. Today that employs about 6 people, and we're making revenue in thousands of dollars monthly. What if we scale that kind of thinking? What if we give people more young people in this place the ability to do that? That is my passion. Thank you very much, sir. And that's what I'm pushing for.
Thank you very much. And the last comment, please, very brief, sir.
Thank you very much. First of all, governments have a very huge role to play here. They need to create jobs. Government must create jobs for our youth. That's 1. 2, government must be able to show transparency in publication of vital information. We don't know how much these people earn. So they are lying to us. We need to see transparency in their leadership. That is 2. Then 3, we need what we call brotherhood. The reason why the Jewish people are the most successful race in this world today. I mean, you check the list of Forbes magazine, the richest people are the Jewish people. You check Nobel laureates, they are Jewish people. What are they doing that we are not aware of? There is a tradition in their religion called Judaism, and that thing is brotherhood. So we have to stretch our hands and lift ourselves out. We must encourage ourselves as youth. We must have to attend to ourselves. And then again, youth need to be included in the situations of things, in the affairs of things. Don't give them 25 million naira form to become a participant in your politics. It doesn't make sense. It doesn't make sense.
Thank you very much.
This is part of what we do also in African Transport Initiative. We try to look at these children, because before they become youth, they were children. They are in the IDP camps today. Nobody is looking after them. If you do not do anything about them today, they will grow up tomorrow. They will look forward to escape. And you see them die in the Mediterranean Sea. That is what we don't want to happen. So we can start today by taking care of the people that have been abandoned in the bush. I saw a girl using paper leaf to do pad. Okay?
A girl child was using leaf to do sanitary pad, and that is very, very bad. So what we do in my organization, African Transport Initiative, is that we task ourselves to provide what we call dignity kits for these kids. We give them a bag that contains a toothpaste, a toothbrush, a bathing soap. We give them a bag that contains sanitary pad. We give them a bag that contains nail clips. So these are the things that will safeguard their dignity in times of crisis.
Thank you very much, sir. Please, can you put your hands together for all our panelists? They have done an awesome job this morning. Please, can you move to the side for pictures? Thank you very much. Please, I want to request that we rearrange the set in preparation for the next presentation. Ready? Please, can we put our hands together again for the panelists? Ladies and gentlemen, since the beginning of this program, we have been discussing different aspects of leadership. And we've had a lot of discussions and interventions from different perspectives. But I dare say that it is one thing to talk about leadership from outside power. It's another to talk about it from the experience of actually being in the seat of power. We have none other than Our Excellency in our midst today, who we have had the privilege of hosting since the beginning of this program. Can we please put our hands together for her for that? As I invite Our Excellency, may I please request that people in the gallery to please come and fill the main bowl, and those up, please move closer. Please, let's put our hands together as I bring up Our Excellency, Mrs. George Banda, the former president of Malawi. Please, can we rise, please? Let us rise and put our hands together. And please, let's come down. Let's put our hands together. You're welcome.
May we sit? Good morning, distinguished ladies and gentlemen. Good morning. It has been an enriching 3 days here at Covenant University. But I was sitting here listening to the last discussion, and I thought I would start by saying the following. Youth are leaders of today and not leaders of tomorrow. Somebody said, these people in the past 50 years ago, when they were leaders, they were young people. And they have grown old. And the average president on the continent of Africa is 60 years old. And we keep telling the young people, your time is not now.
wait. Africa is losing the participation of young people in leadership. I would like to recommend that there must be nothing about young people without young people sitting at the table. And that, for me, if they are the majority on this continent, it's a matter of common sense that they should be sitting at the policy formulating tables. But sometimes, common sense is not very common. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, during this conference we have noted how Africa has decided to change internal structure of our economies by improving business climate, macroeconomic policies, and regional integration, which have spurred the broader domestic economies of many African countries. We have also seen how infrastructure and technology are moving fast, connecting the African countries to each other and changing how our societies operate. We have noted how mobile phones have opened up access to banking and other financial services. Indeed, we have seen how the rural farmers that previously wouldn't have used banks can now access financial products through their mobile phones. We have noted how social media has changed the structure of governance and reshaped the media industry today. We have indeed seen how democracy has reshaped the social political governance of our continent. We can testify that Africa is on a new trajectory. The aspirations of our forefathers who established the then Organization of Africa Unity, who fought for liberation and independence from colonial rule, were faced with completely different challenges from those the African Union leaders do today. Hence the birth of the Vision 2063 that seeks to address new emerging challenges of our continent. And in a constantly changing environment, these changing circumstances require a new paradigm of leadership. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, as Africa looks forward to realizing Vision 2063, it is imperative that new paradigm of leadership is explored in order to secure Africa's future. This will require examining how our beliefs have changed and the paradigm shift. There's a need to demonstrate how the paradigm shift has influenced the conceptualization of effective leadership and to draw implications for public policy education from both the paradigm shift and the new definitions of leadership. Our worldview that shaped our behaviors and cultures for several hundred years are losing credibility. Both internal and external dynamics are constantly changing tastes and aspirations. Because of these evolving dynamics, the traditional leadership styles that we were used to are also giving way. Indeed, as Capra argues, that these assumptions are the belief in the scientific method as the only approach to knowledge, the view of the universe as a mechanical system composed of elementary material building blocks, the view of life in society as a competitive struggle for existence, and the belief in an unlimited progress to be achieved through economic and technological growth. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, for many years now, in many countries in Africa, basic assumptions or paradigms of our society have been found wanting in their ability to respond to the complex problems of our times. With increasing use of information technology, new and emerging challenges in security, business, and governance have emerged. With increasing effects of climate change, a growing youth population, and demands for gender equality, all call for a shift in paradigm of leadership in Africa's future has to be secured. Schwartz and Ogilvy recognize that some of the qualities of the paradigm shift, as they have identified them, overlap. They also realize that as the paradigm shift progresses, some of these qualities may be refined and replaced with other conceptualizations that are more appropriately capture the new view of the world. However, the themes that emerge from these qualities are at the heart of the cultural transition. The themes represent a shift from the mechanistic worldview in which objectivity, control, and linear causality are supreme to a worldview marked by a more contextual, complex, and relational paradigm. They also portend the decline of the values of the patriarchal world and the end of the dominance of its values of objectivity, independence, and rationality. Paradigm shifts such as the one we are now experiencing have occurred at various times in the history of Western civilization. Sociologist Petrim Sorokin posits that these cultural evolutions are part of a strikingly regular fluctuation of value systems and beliefs that have occurred throughout the history of mankind. However, Sorokin states very strongly that the crisis we are facing today is no ordinary crisis, but among one of the great transition phases that have occurred in all previous cycles of human history. The transition that we are in calls for a deep evaluation of the beliefs that we have used to make meaning in our lives. It calls for far-reaching changes in most social relationships and forms of organization, and a recognition that the premises upon which many of these relationships were built are now outdated. It is no less than a complete cultural transformation. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, old paradigms die hard. The true believers may never give up their perspective, but simply become the minority as the numbers of evangelists for the new paradigm reach a critical mass and the values of the new paradigm become dominant. Capra senses that before the 20th century is out, the emergent paradigm will have reached that critical mass. It will replace the conventional paradigm as the accepted view of reality. His prediction would seem to hold true for the conceptualization of leadership. The new definitions and the conceptualizations of effective leadership, which have been proliferated over the past 12 years, evidence the paradigm shift. Kuhn tells us that paradigms influence not only what we see, but what we don't see. In the conventional paradigm, organizations are seen as machines and people are irrational beings who must be molded and shaped into interchangeable parts for the smooth functioning of the works. Through this mechanistic lens, the leader is perceived to operate in a stable organizational environment. The leader's role is to plan, organize, control, and make decisions commensurate with his or her position in the hierarchy. The leader who sets goals for the organization and his/her subordinates based on data and a rational process of identifying future directions and priorities. Organizations are seen to function in logical, predictable ways, and the leader's job is to control outcomes. The leader-subordinate relationship is based on a transaction, an exchange of wants between leader and follower. The leader recognizes what the subordinates want from work and sees they get it if their performance warrants reward. The leader uses power to control others' actions. Vision, the leader's vision, is used to motivate subordinates to accomplish organizational goals. Leadership is viewed as a property of the individual. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the shift to the new paradigm describes a world that is more complex, diverse, ambiguous, constantly changing and unpredictable than the conventional view of a stable, orderly universe. Scholars have begun to explore the implications for leadership and management of operating in a world of permanent white paper. Veil identifies a system of myths in the practice of leadership and management, emanating from a conventional view of the world that have a powerful control over our consciousness and stifle our ability to adapt the constant change. The first is the myth of a single person called the leader. It is a myth that obscures the reality that all kinds of people, whether or not they have the title or authorized power, have opportunities for leadership in modern organizations. A second myth is that there is a single freestanding organization in which the leader or manager carries out his or her role. In a world of permanent white paper, the boundaries between an organization and its increasingly turbulent environment have blurred. Furthermore, the thorough ramifications of the idea of organization douse our sensitivity to all the different ways the organization can appear, depending on the point of view of the observer. A third myth is that of control through a pyramidal chain of command. Hierarchy is deeply embedded in our cultural psyche. We aren't organized unless someone is in charge. Yet modern organizations are composed of networks, cross-functional task groups, matrix structures, and numerous informal collectivities that have arisen because of the workable notion of the single chain of command. Another myth is that of the organization as a pure instrument for the attainment of official objectives. Even though the Human Relations School in the 1930s and 40s introduced the existence of the informal organization with its many unofficial goals, we cling to the idea that organizations are rational instruments designed for specific, agreed upon, and identifiable purposes. There's also the myth of rational analysis as the chief means of understanding and directing the organization. Since the time of the Industrial Revolution, rationality has been the dominant model. Effectiveness consists of rationally deciding what needs to be done and then rationally doing it. However, in a world of permanent white paper, the complex and diverse systems that interconnect with other complex and diverse systems in unpredictable ways, intuition wisdom will be needed as much, if not at times more than rational analysis. What the conventional view of organizations and leadership does not see is the turbulence and ambiguity endemic to most organizational processes. The multiple perspectives present regarding organizations' goals and purposes, and the interconnection and mutual shaping that constrains and influences the relationship between leader and follower. The new research on leadership takes these emergent paradigm assumptions as its premises. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, since 1978, when Burns introduced the concept of transformative leadership, growing numbers of scholars and practitioners have embraced a view of leadership that is less hierarchical, more relational, and focuses on making meaning rather than making rules. In contrast to the notion of leadership as transaction, Burns views leadership as transformational. Instead of an exchange of wants, leadership is recognized as a symbiotic relationship between leaders and followers in which the needs, desires, and values of both mesh and create meaning in the context of the organization. Transformational leadership is not power over, but power to. Transformative leaders empower followers by enlisting them in creating a vision for their lives and for the organization that elevates both followers and leaders to higher levels of productivity, self-actualization, and responsibility. What Burns recognizes in his conceptualization of leadership is that it is not practiced from the helm of the ship or from the top of the hip, but in context and in collaboration with others. Leadership, therefore, is shared act, practiced at times by every member of the community. Taking off from Burns' work, other scholars have focused on the cultural, symbolic, and artistic aspects of leadership. Issues considered soft and poetic in the conventional view, thens and nones. Serogovian refers to leadership as cultural expression. What is important is what the leader stands for. Who is he or who is she? Tactical skills such as conflict management, decision-making using situational leadership theories are considered basic competences by Serogovian. But to go beyond routine competence, the leader must make meaning. Meaning suggests that people believe in what they are doing and appreciate its importance to the organization, to society, and to themselves. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, the leader must first of all recognize the distinction between basic competences and the symbolic leadership. They must stand for certain principles that become the foundation of their actions. They must be able to articulate their principles into an operational framework. They must persist in these principles and help people interpret contributions and successes in light of the organization's purposes. They must recognize that little can be accomplished without the support and goodwill of others. With the emphasis on meanings rather than skills, Serogovian proffers that we come to see leadership as less a behavioral style or management technique and as more a cultural expression, a set of norms, beliefs, and principles emerge to which organizational members give allegiance. Several other scholars have amplified the rationale and cultural aspects of new paradigm leaders. Coates and Posner, in a study of managers and leaders, uncovered 5 fundamental practices of exceptional leaders. 1, exceptional leaders challenge the status quo by looking for opportunities and taking risks. 2, they aspire a shared vision through their ability to envision the future and through their commitment to enlist others in creating the vision. Number 3, they enable others to act by fostering collaboration and by strengthening others. 4, exceptional leaders model the way by setting an example and by making accomplishments visible. And 5, they encourage the heart by recognizing individual contributions and celebrating accomplishments. Similarly, in a study of charismatic leaders, Conger found several behaviors that were common among them. Charismatic leaders have skills in visioning, in communication, in trust building, and in empowerment. George Gardner examined the task performed by leaders and identified what he considered to be the most important function of leadership. Most of those functions were envisioning goals, affirming values, motivating, achieving workable unity through trust, serving a symbol and renewing, all of which he saw subsuming the leadership tasks of enabling and empowering. Taken together, these studies demonstrate that while the conventional paradigm emphasizes the instrumental and behavioral aspects of leadership, the emergent paradigm recognizes the more informal, subtle, and the symbolic aspect of leadership. The themes that run through the recent literature on leadership emphasize empowerment, vision, culture, collaboration, complexity, diversity, dynamic environments, non-linear thinking, and an ability to ride the waves of change. For some, the new image of leadership that has evolved over the past decade suggests that the conventional model has outlived its usefulness and now must be replaced with the emergent view. The old approach is purposive, static, and entropic, while the new one is holistic, dynamic, and generative. However, Quinn suggests that rather than look at the two perspectives, which he labels as purposive and holistic, as an either-or dichotomy, an act which itself is based in the logic of the mechanistic paradigm, we consider the holistic view as inclusive of the purpose view. He proposes that exceptional leaders do not achieve excellence in their organizations through using one or the other philosophies, but by using both. Exceptional leaders recognize that their environment is turbulent, unpredictable, and complex, and employ a variety of perspectives in order to cope effectively with it. Distinguished ladies and gentlemen, Quinn concludes that moving beyond rational management does not mean moving from the purposive to the holistic frame. It means using both frames. This entails moving through 3 stages. The first step is recognizing polarities. The second step is seeing the strengths and the weaknesses in each of the polar perspectives. The third and most challenging step is not to affix to one or the other, but to move to a meta level that allows one to see the interpenetrations and the inseparability of the two polarities. The third step takes us to a transformational logic. It allows for simultaneous integration and differentiation. The new vision integrates the previously contradictory elements and results in synergy. It is here that excellence occurs. Quinn's ideas are at the leading edge of the current research on leadership. Effective leaders move beyond rationality and the machine metaphor to a more multi-perspective and holistic frame, a frame that is inclusive of both views. If one compares the holistic leadership model with the role of the public policy educator, similar values, beliefs, and behaviors are quickly apparent. Let us examine the implications of the paradigm shift and the new definitions of leadership for public policy education in context. This entails helping people recognize the assumptions that render them powerless and then taking action which brings their concerns to the organizational and community agenda. Han sees the role of public policy educators as helping to equalize the ability of citizens to participate effectively. He emphasizes helping people cope or adapt is not enough. To have control over their lives, people must be able to understand and participate in decision-making at the organizational and governmental levels. The results of empowerment is an organizational or community culture that generates a sense of meaning in people's lives and challenges them to higher levels of self-actualization and social responsibility. It is also an environment in which leadership is dispersed. Public policy education is grounded on democratic principles. Empowerment is a means to enact these principles and is based on valuing a hierarchically ordered empowerment also implies an organizational culture that is collaborative, a third common theme in the literature on leadership and public policy education. The role of cooperative extension throughout its history has been to co-sponsor activities and cooperate and collaborate with its various constituencies. Its name and its heritage are based on these values. The objectives of enhancing citizen participation in policy making and bringing about greater collaboration between all parties in the policy processes operationalizes these values. These attitudes are further manifested in Extension's role in community leadership development. The policy education model set forth by Han also puts an emphasis on processes as well as content. Citizens must not only have information about issues, but they must be able to communicate, form coalitions, lead others, facilitate group actions, network and collaborate, manage conflict and motivate. They focus on process, on working groups, on teamwork. The world of the new paradigm, which is marked by continual complex change and dynamic, interdependent systems require leadership that emphasizes leadership groups, networks, process, intuition, perceptions, and collaboration. Extension educators already skilled themselves in these areas can play an important role in helping develop the capacity of the citizenry to survive and thrive in a world of constant complex. The final theme, which is common to both new paradigm leadership and public policy education, is the use of multiple frames to examine issues of import to a community. Han advocates the alternatives and consequences model as the way to explore policy. A list of the alternatives, including existing and new solutions for resolving an issue, are generated. The alternatives allow one to explore an issue as it might be seen by different professions and disciplines, and include the resolutions favored by people on all sides of an issue. The pros and cons of each alternative are identified. Quinn describes this act of framing and reframing as ideally leading to a different kind of comprehension. The reframing process results in a synergetic integration, the integrated functioning of antithetical elements. Public policy educators who can achieve meta-level analysis using both the purposive and holistic frame to examine issues and to carry out the process of public policy education will have risen, in Quinn's view, to a transformational logic, a simultaneous integration and differentiation in which two contrasting domains are understood and woven together. Using and teaching this perspective in the public policy process would be a significant contribution to society. In conclusion, it would seem that extension educators, by embracing public policy education as put forth by Han, are on the cutting edge in recognizing, applying, and teaching the assumptions of the emergent paradigm and the hierarchical world order it represents. Through modeling the new leadership style, as well as teaching it, through striving to create a culture of participation and empowerment, through focusing on process as well as content, through demonstrating the worth of collaboration as a means to achieve common purpose, and through understanding and using multiple frames to help unify polarities in the policy-making process, extension educators will themselves be transformational leaders. They will help raise the citizenry to a new level of self-actualization and social responsibility. Their work also has the potential to helping members of our society come to terms with and eventually embrace the radical shifts in individual values and societal conditions that transition to the new world view portends. This seeks to make a great common people and thus readjust the map of the world. We can distinguish, ladies and gentlemen, proudly secure Africa's future if we can embrace transformational leadership style embodied in a servant leader. I'm a believer and an advocate for transformational and servant leadership. I believe that leadership is falling in love with the people you lead and the people falling in love with you. In this instant, you effectively become a servant leader. So come, men and women of Africa, let us take charge of our own destiny and move into the future with hope and with God's help. Thank you for your attention.
Please let us rise and let's put our hands together for Our Excellency, for that outstanding presentation. Please let's keep clapping. Thank you very much. You may please be seated. I'm sure you'll agree with me that this morning has been an exciting time for us today. We have had a wonderful plethora of presentations, and we have been challenged to go forth and actually make a difference. Shortly, we will be bringing this particular session to a close. And please, immediately after now, we will be going for a 15-minute tea break. And then we will proceed to the breakout sessions. Please, it's important, from there we'll go for lunch. It's important that we reconvene here for the closing event to be seated by 2:15, so that exactly 3:30 we begin. This will be the closing event of this great conference that we started 2 days ago. I am sure you believe that better thereof is the end of a thing than the beginning. So that is where we'll have the climax of everything we have done up till this point. Thank you very much. The breakout sessions, the technical, and then the scientific session, all of them, we have them taking place in Cookreed seminar rooms. Cookreed building is a gigantic building we have immediately after this place. There are different seminar rooms assigned to different sessions. So please, it's very, very important that we know where to go from there. It's very important that we are back, please, for the closing ceremony. The Chancellor of Covenant University will be present, and this is where we'll bring everything to a head. Thank you very much. So, please, for the sake of emphasis again, it is very important that we are back here by 2:15 so that we can begin immediately by 2:30 for the final event. The Chancellor will be around, like I said, and this will be the grand finale of all that we have been doing. Thank you very much. Will you please rise? Please, can you give a hearty handshake to someone sitting next to you? And congratulate them for a great future for Africa. Congratulate them for a great future for Africa. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the afternoon session. Thank you very much. We'll see you in the afternoon session. All right, please, the tea break is in CAF 2. The tea break will take place in Cafeteria 2. Please be guided. The tea break will take place in Cafeteria 2. Thank you very much.